Welcome back, everybody, to Pivot Point of View. I'm Destry Millsap along with Becky Pearson, and thank you for being with us today. Today, we are going to talk about saddle fit and mostly fitting the saddle to yourself. So, Becky, what are some of the things that you've seen with people who have chosen a saddle and it may be too narrow or too wide for them? What kind of pain issues have you seen with that?
Um, I think a lot of hip pain with that. I see a lot in the barrel racing. Like, I feel like women get very, how do I want to say this? Like, there is some pride in seat size too. Like, that to me is what I see as a huge point in the barrel racing. Like, they get offended if you tell them that you think that they need a bigger seat size. Like, they basically, you might as well be telling them they got a big butt. They don't like being told that. But it really I feel like it kind of depends on your horse's style, your style of riding, and what you need from how you sit on a horse. And then, of course, yeah, if you're having some pain related issues, hip pain's probably the biggest thing that I see as an issue. And a lot of those women that have a lot of hip pain, they decide to maybe go with like a treeless saddle because it's less painful, but please don't go to a treeless saddle. They're terrible for your horse. It's not, I think a treeless saddle is terrible for your horse, and the vets that I've talked to also agree. So I don't know. What do you think?
So some of the things that I've seen with saddle, basically, like if you have a saddle that's too wide for you this way, um, it can put a lot of strain on like your abductors and things like that, and that's when you start to see impingement issues in the joint. And on the other side of that, if you have a saddle that's too narrow, then it forces you to balance with your adductors, and then they overwork and cause pain on the inside. So finding that perfect fit for you that way may help a lot of your problems. Just like, a while back when we had Lydia on the show, we were talking about choosing a horse that fit you, not only just like your style and everything else, but fitting a horse that like kind of fits your body. Like you don't want if you're a smaller person or however it is, you don't want to be too spread out on this great big horse, and it's going to be hard for you to cue that horse correctly and hang on just in general. You're going to cause a lot of compensations in your body, and then as we know, you cause compensation through the hips, then it goes to your pelvis and low back, and that's when we start to see those pudendal issues, quadratus lumborum, soreness in your lumbar spine, things like that.
Okay, so for those of you that are lay people, what he just said uh, is that the pudendal issues are your pelvic floor, like you can have weakness down in your private area, and then the quadratus lumborum is a muscle that's up in your back as well, and so yes, you can get issues those places as well, and I have. It feels like I've had almost every issue of pain that we've talked about on here. I don't know if it's just because I'm that old or what, but or I'm in really, like I've had a hard life. But I was having some hip impingement, so like pinching pain in the front of my hip. I really think it started when I started walking a lot. Everybody's like, "Oh, walking's so great for you," but it actually kind of I have issues. So how I was walking was creating some pain. But then when I would get on and ride, I had way more hip pain, and the fatter the horse, the more hip pain I had. And so um, I noticed when I got on my more thoroughbred type horse, I had a lot less hip pain. When I would get on the kids, we had like a quarter pony and he was like round as could be. He cinched up like a big horse, but was still kind of pony sized. And oh my gosh, when I would get on him to tune him up for the girls, like my hip pain was terrible afterwards. So I agree 100% with what you just said about, the size of your horse in relation to your pain. Mhm.
Another thing that it can affect is if you have poor hip alignment, we know that it goes down to our knees as well. So if you have a saddle that's too narrow for you or a horse that's too narrow for you, since we're on that topic as well, it's going to
Mhm.
cause that inward rotation where you're going to be stressing the medial knee ligaments and your medial thigh muscles as well, or your inner thigh muscles. And then if it's too wide, it's going to cause your knees to outwardly rotate, putting a lot of stress on the outside of your knee. So if you have like IT band pain and the lateral hip flexor type pain, it's going to cause issues with that as well if your saddle or horse is too wide.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So do you have some recommendations for people to figure out width and all of that for them to determine if they have the right size saddle?
Well, I think that you need to do your research on what companies typically fit a certain way, what trees fit a certain way, and talk to those saddle makers to get the right fit for you. And I think it's important to go try a saddle obviously before you buy it. Try it on your horse, make sure it fits your horse, and then make sure that it fits you and is comfortable as well. And ride in it. Go ahead and ride in it and make sure that you don't feel any type of weird pains that you've never felt before. Like if your knee gets sore after, go ride your other saddle and see if your knee gets sore that you're used to or that's broke in, and just talk to those guys about what the best fit for your body type is.
Yeah. You know, so we've been through a lot of saddles over the years between me and the girls, and I absolutely love uh, Robbie Phillips as a saddle maker and as a guy. I'm not trying to promote his saddles, but what Robbie, if you go to an event that Robbie has set up, he lets you ride in the saddle before you buy it. He lets you, if you want to make your run in the saddle, he lets you do that. He has great conversations about, he will fit your horse with just a bare tree and determine what you need that way. Um, he will also recommend a seat size. And so, and I know there's more saddle makers out there. I know the Burns people also, when they're at an event, they do a phenomenal job with fitting your saddle with a bare tree and then letting you try those out as well. A lot of those Burns reps have extra saddles that you can borrow for a while. Or, if they're at an event, they'll let you try them out. And really, that is it's worth so, so much because saddles are a huge investment. And I have bought a lot of them that didn't, like I sent them the exact specs that I wanted to make a custom saddle off of one that did fit my horse, fit me, and they come and they're not at all. They don't fit at all like that other saddle. And it's so frustrating to me. That's why actually lately I have bought just like used saddles that I can get on my horse. And I don't try to have one made that way. I honestly have had better luck just buying some used saddles that I can just get on, try them, and go from there.
I think it's important that your legs can hang naturally down and that everything is in alignment with the stirrup bar placement. So your ankle, knee, and hip are all in comfortable alignment when you try these saddles.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna throw a little monkey wrench in there though too. Like if you have more of a free running horse so on free runners you need to sit more. Um I always think when you're sitting on your butt, that's more of the, okay, slow down rate more for me. And then when you kind of get up in that 3 point position, if you're an English writer listening, like just the up position is the go position. And then when you're on your butt, it's more of the whoa position. And so, like, for those people that are on more free runners, like you might need to go to a saddle that allows you to put your feet in front of you more in your turns. And you also might need to go to a bigger seat. Okay. And so, like with the cutters are always riding, like my girls are cutters and they're riding 16-inch seats and they're tiny girls, like Gracie weighs maybe 120 pounds, she does not have a big butt, but how you ride a cutting horse is with a big seat and short stirrups so that you're back and you're on your hips and you're sitting towards the back of that horse, pushing towards the back of your saddle to stay more secure. And so I think barrel racers can actually think a lot about that if they have a free running horse, having a bigger seat size so that they can sit back and help that horse rate better, help that horse work more off of his hind end. If your horse is not working on its hind end in the turns, watch what your body position is doing. Are you up in your seat? Are you forward? Because if you're forward, he's going to be on his front end and not using his hind end either. And not to mention if there's, soreness issues, but really start, if you're having a problem with your horse, you really have to start with your own horsemanship versus getting a bigger bit, getting a, more tie down, this and that. Like really work on yourself, make sure you are doing your part in riding your horse well. And sometimes that's a matter of having the right equipment, meaning the right saddle to put you in the right position to ride your horse well.
And that doesn't mean like, you know, when you do that modification, that doesn't mean like if you have your feet too far out in front of you, then it's gonna affect your quadriceps and your hip flexors. They're gonna start to be overactive, and you'll start to get some low back pain from those pulling on it. You won't be able to hold your core as good. So those are some of the indicators on if you do get that set up. If your feet are too far forward, those are some of the things that you'll see, and you'll know to bring it back more closer to neutral that way.
Yeah. I like a saddle that, hangs naturally right below me, but I can get my feet forward if I need to. So currently what I ride is an Irvine saddle. They're really not, you don't hear about them much down here in the States because they're made up in Canada. I got it used from my friend Keisha, and I love that saddle. Like it looks pretty ranchy. It honestly is kind of built like a reined cow horse saddle where it's a little bit of a forward or a slope in the front of it. And it really puts me back where I need to on big. But just riding around, my feet do hang down naturally where they should. Now, Destry, on a rope saddle, do you feel like because in order to rope well, you have to be able to get up in your stirrups and you kind of need to be more towards that front of your saddle. So what are you looking for other than where you said it just kind of hangs naturally? Do you kind of look for one that you can actually kind of get your feet back a little bit, or you just want them to hang straight down?
My preference is straight down, and I think that that's the most like it straight down, or if you can just anywhere you can keep your feet under you and have a strong, stable platform.
Mhm.
My whole life I didn't really like I rode some older saddles and things like that, and then I won a saddle and I rode that. And to be honest, they were too big for me. And I didn't really pay attention. I just, always would rope and didn't think about anything else. I never had any issues. I'd always be able to get to the front of my saddle and stuff like that. But I will tell you, so then, um, it's later in life than I would care to admit that I finally got some saddles that the seat was the seat that I needed. I
Mhm.
went from a 14 and a half, 15-inch seat to a 14,
Mhm.
and it made a huge
Mhm.
difference. And, obviously, after those surgeries, my body had changed. And so I was in them other saddles, I was struggling to get to the front of my saddle. I'm going to go ahead and tell this story because it's kind of funny how I was almost forced to get new saddles because I wasn't almost forced. I 100% was forced because I moved down here to Eastern Oklahoma and we go to the horse sale at the Tulsa Stockyards. And and I didn't have keys. We just got a new trailer and I didn't have keys for this trailer yet. So we go there and I'm from Nebraska, so I'm pretty naive, like, cowboy code all day. Pretty naive about that stuff. Don't think that anybody's gonna mess with your stuff or whatever. Well, so we go into the horse sale and we come out and I can see the light on and my mid tack door is open and
Mhm.
I'm just robbed blind. They left my ropes because I will just absolutely burn a rope till its last day of life. But they stole bridles, they stole
Oh.
saddles, both my saddles, the one that I won in high school and the one that I'd had forever since high school. And and they're gone and I'm on foot at that point. And
Mm.
I had just bought another saddle that was almost a little bit too small for me, but they stole that sucker too. And the two that I had my whole life growing up and from high school, I never recovered those, but of course that one that I had bought that had a smaller seat, uh I was able to track it down through the Texas Rangers. But so
Mm.
anyway, I make a claim through my insurance agent and they replaced both of my saddles for like full brand new price or whatever, and I was able to get two new saddles that actually fit me. And so
The
through
blessing.
a crazy crazy bunch of events, I was robbed blind and forced to get new stuff, and the new stuff fit me and worked better, turns out. Thank you, Jesus, for me get robbed
Works in
blind. In the
mysterious
moment, I
ways.
was very upset, but then I was like, bling. Once I figured out insurance covered it, I was like, oh my God, thank the Lord that I can now get saddles that fit me. So, I mean, it's an absolute game changer when you have a saddle that's fit to you. Now, like you get a seat that's too small, it's kind of hard to dally, especially if you got a big old team roper belly. But but I would say that was like a major game changer. I also ride my stirrups a little longer than most people. I think the barrel racers and cutters and everybody else like that, they all have different stirrup lengths, so they got more contact to sit down in their seat more and things like that. But when I rope, mine are a little bit longer, so I can, have that pressure through my feet and not be too far up over my saddle horn when I rope and I stay balanced. So you got to find what works for you. Stirrups that sit forward, absolutely. I don't see how they would work unless you're a guy that really sits on his pockets when he ropes. I'm not sure if that's advantageous for most people, but yeah, I would say straight down for me is the way to go there.
Mhm. So it'd be interesting. So just it's very opposite of like what I need in in my saddle. So like if I were to rope off of, which I'm not a roper, but if I were to rope off of big, I mean, I would have to have a completely different saddle, I would think, just to help me get up where I need to, versus running barrels in them. It's just a different, probably different setup, different deal.
Right. And it's also important to realize that, your stirrup orientation, like if your saddle is twisted or asymmetrical, like it'll go all the way through your shoulders and affect that too. And so it might push you up over one side or drop you down in the other side where you don't want to be. And then that automatically will cue your horse one way or the other. And you may not even realize it if you're riding something that's pretty, pretty feely and goes off with a lot of leg pressure. Or just in general, it might sink them in there closer or you have a hard time holding them in the hole, depending on how your legs are sitting there.
Yeah. One other topic that that makes me think of is twisted trees or broken trees to test for that. Um, so, if you have a lot of soreness, if your horse is showing a lot of soreness and you know that the saddle seems to fit okay, but excuse me, uh, maybe you have a broken tree, being able to set it down on its horn on the ground and push on the cantle and see if there's any give. That'll kind of tell you if there's a broken tree. And then to know if you have a twisted tree or not, you got to look at that stitching in the back, and it should be in good alignment with your horn. And if it is off at all, then you also might have a twisted tree. There was a while there that there was a particular saddle company, and of course, I ended up getting one of them that had a twisted tree in that, and my horse had significant back pain due to it, and so I was very thankful I was able to find that out and get that corrected quickly. Mhm.
Another thing to watch out for is a saddle that's too deep or too flat. So if a saddle is too deep, then we're looking at shortened hip flexors and your pelvis being compressed due to it being tipped back, and it's definitely going to decrease your mobility there, along with affecting your lower back and your glute max and hamstrings for them being over engaged as well. So
Yeah. So lots of considerations. Um, so there's things that a person can do if you do really wonder if saddle fit is appropriate. That is something I have done saddle fitting with horses, um, and can definitely help people look at that. If I see them in person, it is a little bit difficult to do those virtual, but I could sure talk you through some things on fitting the saddle to your horse. Um, and actually, on our YouTube channel, we have a saddle fitting video with Sonia Atkins. She was a Burns rep for many years, but we did a saddle fitting with her on our horse Stevie. And so you can look that up. It's actually one of our most popular videos that we have. And so that gives you some good information on how to fit a saddle to your horse well. And yeah, so there's lots of information out there. And honestly, there's some easy fixes. They're not great fixes, but sometimes if your saddle doesn't fit you or your horse and you need to make a change, there are some like temporary things until you can find a saddle that fits you better or can afford to buy a better saddle. A lot of times they'll use the classic equine shims. They're like less than $30 for a set of shims that can really help your saddle that might be a little wide and maybe rocks a little bit too much. And you can place them where you need them. So I really like that. Sherry Survey there's a YouTube video about her talking about those shims. Um, and then there's another pad out there it's a Rainsman pad, and it has 4 different pockets where you can put shims in different areas. So maybe maybe your saddle your horse has a lot of atrophy right behind its shoulder blades and you get pain there, you can put a shim back a little bit further. Or we've done that on some of our cutting horses that are small, but we have to have a big saddle on them. We had a little highbrow cat mare that she was just so tiny that we had to shim it up further back in order to allow for room for her shoulder blades a little bit better. So that's been really nice. Or maybe the saddle might be too wide in the back and you can actually put shims in the back. So those are some options. Those are a couple pads that I like. to help that accommodate for poor fitting saddles until you can get a better situation that and they don't break the bank.
Yes. Well, and all this stuff, I mean, obviously saddle prices can vary, horse prices can vary, but they all cost the same to take care of, and they all cost the same to feed most of the time. So get one that fits you. I mean, it makes a huge difference to have a horse that not only fits your style, but fits your body, fits your cues, saddle the same way. I mean, there's nothing better than having that perfect fit.
Yeah. Yep. And saddle is a tool that it should enhance what you do. You shouldn't have to fight what's going on in your saddle. So if you need to get up in a saddle more and you can't, then you need to figure out a saddle that's going to help you. If you need to sit back in your saddle more for your turns and you can't, then you need to figure out a way that saddle can help you. I mean, I've even taken my saddles into a saddle maker and had them cut my leathers narrower in so that I can swing them a little bit more forward because they get bound up right in that tree. And so there's a lot of different ways you can kind of make some modifications to a saddle that maybe fits your horse really well, but it isn't working as well for you. So there's creative ways that you can do things to have that saddle help you instead of hinder you.
Right. And then, of course, on the other side of that, there's ways that you can become more flexible and stronger and things like that as well to help yourself out if you feel like you have found the right saddle. But I'm telling you, it's a great, and if there's clinicians listening to this, that is a great question to ask is, have you changed your saddle recently? Whether you're working on a horse or working on a person, that is always a great question to ask. Like if they are unsure if there's a specific event or anything that brought this pain on, what have you changed lately? I mean, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. And I always feel like it seems like every time I get a new horse, I need a different saddle. So yeah, I do have one saddle that fits a lot of horses and that thing is going to be here forever. It currently doesn't fit big, but it fits a lot of colts. Like the bar angles are just really good on it. And so I will probably never sell that thing. And it was my very first custom saddle that I ever ordered. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of different options out there, and you can drive yourself crazy trying to figure it all out. But definitely try to ride, try to ride the saddle before you buy it, if at all possible.
So here's something that I really struggle with, and I have a couple horses that are this way. What are your recommendations for people that have mutton withered horses or, broad backed horses or horses without much wither? What are your recommendations to finding a way to fit those horses? They just seem like they're so tough to fit and not get your saddle sliding one way or the other. I mean, especially on a head horse or something like, or even a barrel horse. I mean, what are some of the things that you have seen work for those type of horses, or any like saddle brands specifically?
Yeah, they are very challenging. Our horse Stevie she is probably the most mutton withered thing that we have. And I always try to go with a thinner pad with her. And then we did have to get a custom made saddle and we went through Robbie Phillips with that. We had to work a little bit to figure out the right bar angle because your bar angle is here and a lot of saddle fitters don't talk about that, but I do give Robbie a lot of credit for that because that he has his 45s, his 42, and the lower the number the wider those bar angles get, okay? And so we had started out with her, I think we were at a 42 and then but it was bridging. And so like it was gapping between, here's her back. It would fit her maybe in the front, but and in the back, but then it would bridge in the middle. And she was getting a lot of back pain with that. So we went, I think we're actually at a 38 with her. So that means it's starting to get a little bit flatter. And so the flatter the bar angles are going to help that horse. It's going to sit more like where it needs to versus pinching her shoulders and stuff like that. It's still not a perfect fit for her. We still struggle because she does fluctuate a lot in weight sometimes, depending on the time of the year, too. And so that's where some of those shims can come in handy. Um, it can help you when you do have weight fluctuations. Like if they lose a little weight in the summer when you're going hard, having a set of those classic equine shims can help you accommodate for that. And then, she gets a little chubbier in the winter, and so we don't probably need those as much then. So, and it's good to just frequently just try the saddle on your horse without a pad and just make sure it's still fitting. If they've, especially if you got them when they were fairly young and then they put on weight and muscle, or they've been sick, they get EPM and sometimes they lose a lot of weight. Yeah, just because it fit once doesn't mean it's always going to fit. So it's good to check that frequently. So does that answer your question?
Yes, and I googled it. I googled some stuff, and for Western saddles, for the mutton withered horses, they Google recommends Billy Cook, Rainsman, and Circle Y saddles is what it says. And then uh 5 star impact gel, and those are the two main ones they recommend for padding. But I think you make an interesting point. You need to constantly evaluate how your saddle is fitting on your horse for weight fluctuation, obviously, but also if you have an issue with a horse that you just can't seem to fit it saddle wise, they may have asymmetries in their withers
Mhm.
and back and stuff that's not allowing that saddle or a saddle to sit how it needs to. Also, I know one of those mutton withered horses I have, the saddle fit good most of the time, and then when it starts rubbing or having pressure points or anything like that, that's my cue that she's out in her withers and she needs to get worked on. So, um, just some simple things to look for there.
Yeah. The other thing that can contribute, like you might have a great fit for your saddle, but the rigging might not be in the best place. I think we've maybe talked about this before. That's what I had a case going on with this Irvine saddle, is my rigging was too far back. And so then it actually, the latigo was at an angle. So look at when you're cinching up and when you have that placed well on your horse, so it's not on top of their shoulder blades, and you have it cinched up, is your latigo and your cinch directly up and down, or is it at an angle? Because if it's at an angle, is going to constantly be pulling that saddle forward into their shoulder blades and making those horses sore. And so it was a really easy fix. I just took my saddle into local saddle repair guy, and I had taken a picture of it on my horse, and I'm like, hey, how far can we move this forward? Like let's see how far we can move this forward. And when he did that, I mean, it was a game changer for us. Big was not nearly as grumpy after we started using it with the new rig in placement. So it's there's so many factors to it, but a lot of it is kind of common sense, like if you stand back and look. And um but sometimes it takes somebody pointing that out to you too. It took a vet pointing that out to me, because I was super frustrated. I'm like, I feel like this saddle fits him, but he is growly when I cinch him up. And then when we started looking at how actually the latigo was, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. My wife says that my horse gets growly because I put a rope and saddle on her, and she isn't gonna go run barrels when that's on her. So, they know the difference. They know all the things.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I used Big as a turnback horse last night. That was a hoot.
I bet them cows didn't want any part of him. I say so. They're like, we're out.
We about
What
had
does
two of
that
them
be
run.
on?
Yeah, we about had two of them run underneath us, and he was turning tail.
Like scared of the little mice cows.
Yeah, I won't be taking him to an actual cutting to turn back, but for practice, it was fine.
Yes, make them do other things.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was
Speed and
fun.
agility training.
Yeah. I thank God he's not a bucker because I think he'd have bucked me off last night.
Yeah, hopefully if your horses don't like your saddle, they find other ways to tell you other than planting you in the ground.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe an indication that there's an issue there. There could
Yeah,
be many issues.
exactly. All right. Well, I don't think I have anything else about saddle fit. How about you? You got anything else?
No, I think we got it covered for today. So
All right.
all right. Well, I'll close this out, and thank you all for listening. And please go to our page, pivotpointequine.com, where you'll find coaching, rider membership. All of our podcast episodes are on our website. Be sure to reach out to us if you have any questions with your body or your horse's body. We'd be happy to help you out in any way that we can. And as always, let your health be the pivot point to your success.